Hey folks, welcome back to the channel. Today's topic? Humanoids. And no, we're not talking about sci-fi, we're talking real-world robots entering factories in the US, China, and beyond. This is about the next frontier in automation, and if you're an investor, you'll want to hear this one. Let's kick it off with a simple question. Why now? Well, here's the thing. In the US, the average annual wage for a car factory worker is about 95,000. That's over 120 million won for my Korean friends. Labor is expensive, plain and simple. And that's exactly why humanoids are starting to make economic sense. Even if a robot costs a fortune up front, it becomes competitive once you factor in that it doesn't need a paycheck every year. It just needs some maintenance, and it can run for 2 or 3 years. So yeah, the performance still needs to improve, but from a pure cost perspective, we've hit a tipping point. And this isn't theory. Tesla's already announced plans to deploy 5,000 Optimus robots this year, 50,000 next year, and get this, 500,000 by the year after. That's a 100x ramp in just 2 years. Wild. Meanwhile, other players are stepping up too. Figure, often considered the second biggest humanoid company after Tesla, is sending robots into BMW's factory this year. Over in China, UBTECH is planning industrial deployments starting in Q2, especially to EV manufacturers. So what's the difference between how the US and China are approaching humanoids? In the US, it's all about real demand. Companies are facing rising labor costs, especially with reshoring trends under a second Trump term looking more likely. Whether the government pushes it or not, companies are already investing in robotics to keep costs down and stay competitive. In China, though, labor's still cheap. Factory workers make closer to $15,000 a year, so there isn't the same economic urgency. Instead, it's a strategic play. China sees humanoids as the next tech battleground, like semiconductors or EVs, and they're backing it with policy support. It's about building up domestic capability and securing leadership in what they believe will be a critical industry for the next decade. And here's where things get interesting. Even though China doesn't have real labor pressure yet, they already dominate the transitional robot market. Things like service robots, robot vacuums, delivery bots. They hold nearly 50% of the global market share, mostly because of their unbeatable price points. Now they're using that momentum to move up the value chain into industrial humanoids and the parts that make them run. Which brings us to the heart of today's video, the investment case. Let's talk about what makes a humanoid tick. The single most important component? Actuators. These are the muscles that make robots move. And they're not cheap. They make up over 50% of a humanoid's total parts cost. There are 2 main types: rotational actuators, for joints, and linear actuators, for limbs like legs or arms. Rotational actuators are modular units built from motors, gears, and encoders. The key component inside? The reducer. And the most advanced type right now is called the harmonic reducer. Only 3 companies globally make high-end harmonic reducers used in humanoids: Harmonic Drive Systems and Nidec in Japan, and Leader Drive in China. Now here's the twist. 2 years ago, Leader Drive wasn't even considered reliable. But today, they've seriously leveled up. Their prices are less than 1/4 of the Japanese brands. And with rising performance, global demand for Leader Drive is exploding. We expect their market share to climb fast. But there's a catch. Leader Drive is listed on China's domestic A-share market, which means it's not easily accessible to global retail investors. That's where Takbo Group comes in. And this is where things get really interesting. Takbo isn't just another industrial supplier. This is a Chinese auto parts manufacturer founded in 1983 with deep ties to Tesla. In fact, around 40% of Takbo's total revenue comes from Tesla. The company started supplying chassis and NVH components to Tesla back in 2016, and by 2020, they added thermal management systems to the mix. Now they deliver almost every major module Tesla needs, from interior parts to exterior systems. Sure, that level of client dependence is a risk, but it's already starting to ease. Takbo is expanding fast into die-casting lightweight parts and bringing in new EV customers like BYD, Li Auto, Xiaomi, AITO, and Chery. A new round of projects started ramping up in Q4 of last year, and 2024 could be the year they make a real top-line leap. But here's the big kicker. They've also entered the humanoid robot supply chain. Takbo is now working with Tesla to develop and manufacture both rotary and linear actuators for Optimus. They kicked off volume production in Q1 of 2024. And get this, their weekly actuator production targets are set at 70 units in Q1, 3,000 in Q2, and a staggering 10,000 in Q3. They're moving fast. To support that, they spun off a dedicated robotics business last July and announced a new electric actuator capacity expansion plan in Ningbo earlier this year. As of now, they've built capacity to produce 100,000 actuators per year, and they're aiming to scale that to 1 million. They're even starting production at a new factory in Mexico this year, a key move for global supply reach. What gives Takbo its edge is their ability to develop motors in-house, design integrated motor gear controller systems, and do high-precision machining. That's a rare combo, and it puts them in a great spot to dominate the actuator space, both for EVs and for robots. And the macro tailwind? It's huge. The global humanoid market is expected to grow 50% a year for the next 4 years. The Chinese government already announced it wants to see mass production by 2025 and reach world-class levels by 2027. As a domestic leader in this field, Takbo is perfectly positioned to benefit from this policy-driven boom. If you want exposure to both EVs and humanoids, Takbo Group might just be one of the best picks out there. So yeah, humanoids are no longer sci-fi. They're here. And while it's early days, the pieces are moving fast. If you're an investor, it's time to start learning who makes what, who's scaling fastest, and where the real margin opportunities are, especially in parts like actuators, reducers, and screws. That's it for today's deep dive. If you found this helpful, drop a like, leave a comment, and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the next one. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the future.